There is something nobody has told you about the oil you use every day, believing you are taking care of your health. Think for a moment about someone you know. A person over 60 who has already eliminated sugar, reduced salt, avoids fried food from restaurants, walks every morning, and sees the doctor regularly. Someone who, from the outside, seems to be doing everything right. Now imagine that every time this person cooks, they pour onto a hot pan an oil that comes in a bottle with words like light, heart healthy, or rich in omega, that they do this twice a day, that they have been doing it for years, that they have never questioned it because everyone told them it was the smartest choice. That person could be damaging their kidneys, silently, without knowing it, without feeling anything yet. And the most unsettling part is that the damage does not begin when symptoms appear. It begins much earlier. With every meal, drop by drop, day after day, in silence. I have spent more than 25 years working as a specialist in renal health. And if there is one thing I have learned in all that time, it is that the kidneys do not warn you. They do not hurt when they start to deteriorate. They do not send clear signals in the early stages. They simply work, filter, try to compensate, and by the time the body finally speaks, it is often too late to reverse what has been lost. I have seen patients who were doing everything right, or so they believed, and who arrived at my office with compromised kidney function without understanding how it had happened. Careful people who read labels, who avoided obvious excesses, but who were using, every single day, some of the most damaging oils for the kidneys that exist, convinced they were protecting themselves. Today we are going to talk about 3 oils sold as healthy options, present in millions of kitchens, that may be silently accelerating the aging of your kidneys. If you are over 60, this matters more than you can imagine. Before we continue, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. We publish content every week on Real Health for people over 50, based on evidence and without exaggeration. The worst oil of all is probably in your kitchen right now, and it is not the one you are thinking of. But before I tell you which ones they are, I need you to understand the mechanism. Because if I just give you the names, in a few days, you will have forgotten them. And if you forget them, you will keep making the same mistake without realizing it. What makes these oils dangerous is not something visible, not a strange smell or a different color. It is something that happens at the cellular level, in places where no human sense can detect it. A microscopic, cumulative destruction that advances in silence for years. Think of a pipe that gradually accumulates small deposits on its interior walls. At first, the water flows normally. Then it flows more slowly. Then with more pressure. By the time someone notices something is wrong, the pipe has been deteriorating from the inside for years. The kidneys work in a similar way. They are organs of extraordinary precision, composed of millions of small filtering structures that process all your blood several times a day. But those structures are delicate, and after 60 they become far more vulnerable. The body's capacity to neutralize oxidative damage drops with age. Cellular repair becomes slower, and in that context, introducing day after day substances that generate inflammation and oxidative stress is like running contaminated water through a pipe that is already fragile. That is exactly what some of these oils do. And they do it with the appearance of something good. I want to tell you about a patient. I am going to call him Ernest, though that is not his real name. Ernest was 67 years old when he first came to my office. He was an organized, active man, the kind who writes everything down. He brought me a detailed food diary from the past 3 months. No added sugar, no sodas, no alcohol. He walked 40 minutes every morning. His blood pressure was controlled, his glucose was within range, but his blood tests showed something that did not add up. His creatinine had been rising slowly over 2 years. His glomerular filtration rate, the measure of how well the kidneys filter, had dropped nearly 15%. No symptoms, no pain, no signal that had warned him. When I asked him about his kitchen, I found the pattern I have seen repeat itself many times. He cooked every day with vegetable oil, the same one he had been using for decades, the kind that came in a large bottle with a green leaf on the label and the word light in prominent letters. He used it for everything: sautéing vegetables, cooking eggs, preparing chicken. Sometimes he reheated the same pan 2 or 3 times in a day. He did it because no one had ever told him there was anything wrong with it, and because the bottle promised him it was a smart choice for his heart. No one had ever explained what that oil was doing inside his body every time it reached high temperatures. That is what you need to understand now. When a refined vegetable oil is heated, something happens that you cannot see or smell clearly. The fat molecules begin to oxidize. They fragment. They produce compounds that scientists call aldehydes and free radicals. These are small, unstable, reactive molecules. And when you consume them with food, they enter directly into your blood. Imagine that each of those compounds is like a small spark inside a room full of paper. A single spark burns nothing. But if there are thousands of sparks, every day for years, the room begins to deteriorate without anyone lighting a visible fire. That is oxidative stress, and the kidneys are extraordinarily sensitive to it. The kidneys receive approximately 25% of the total cardiac output. That means all the blood, with everything circulating in it, passes through the kidneys several times every hour. If that blood chronically carries oxidative and inflammatory compounds, the kidneys receive all of it, without exception. And after 60, the body's antioxidant defense system is no longer what it once was. The ability to repair cellular damage becomes slower. The small renal vessels lose flexibility and tolerate chronic inflammatory aggression far less well. In that context, continuing to introduce day after day oils that generate oxidation is not a small mistake. It is a mistake that accumulates in silence for years, until the blood tests begin to show what the body can no longer hide. Ernest had no obviously bad habits. The problem was something that no one had questioned for decades because it came wrapped in the language of health. And that brings us directly to the 3 oils. I am going to present them in order from least to greatest impact. The third already causes damage on its own. The second amplifies it silently. And the first, which we will close with at the end, is the one that concerns me most because it is the most common and the most invisible of all. There is additional information complementing what you are learning today in the first pinned comment and in the description. Go there now before we continue. Oil number 3 is going to surprise you. It is one of the most promoted options for people who are health conscious. Refined canola oil. If you search online for heart-healthy oils, canola oil appears on almost every list. It has been recommended for decades. Bottles promote it with words like heart protective and light. And millions of older adults use it every day, convinced they are doing something intelligent. Here is what no one tells you. The problem is not the canola plant itself. The problem is what happens to it during the industrial process that turns it into the clear, odorless, long shelf life liquid you find at the supermarket. To reach that bottle, it goes through solvent extraction, high temperature refining, bleaching, and deodorization. Each stage alters the original structure of the fats. The polyunsaturated fats it contains become structurally unstable after that intensive processing. And when that already fragile oil reaches your hot pan, the damage multiplies. Heat accelerates oxidation. Aldehydes and free radicals are generated in quantities that the antioxidant system of a person over 60 has difficulty neutralizing completely. Think of it like a garden hose stored bent under the sun for months. On the outside it looks the same, but on the inside it has weakened at invisible points. When you apply pressure, those points start to give. Refined canola oil works the same way. Its structure was already compromised before it reached your kitchen. The heat of cooking finishes breaking what remained. For the kidneys, the impact arrives through 2 pathways: direct oxidative stress on the renal vessels and systemic inflammation that slowly deteriorates the filtering structures. Like water with minerals gradually leaving scale inside a coffee maker. Invisible, progressive, cumulative. Millions of people use this oil believing they are protecting their heart, while possibly overloading their kidneys without knowing it. We move to oil number 2. It is even more common. It is in almost every kitchen. And its mechanism of damage is different, but just as silent. Sunflower oil high in omega-6. For generations it was presented as a light and natural alternative. In small amounts it is not necessarily a serious problem. The critical point is what happens when it becomes the main source of fat in a person's diet for decades. Sunflower oil is extremely rich in linoleic acid, an omega-6 fat. The body needs both omega-6 and omega-3 in a balanced proportion. Historically, that proportion was around 4:1. Today it can reach 20:1 in favor of omega-6. That imbalance activates inflammatory pathways that the body cannot easily shut down. Imagine an alarm system designed to activate when there is a threat and turn off when the threat passes. But if it receives alert signals constantly, every day for years, it begins to operate in permanent emergency mode. Chronic inflammation works exactly like that, and the kidneys, which receive a large proportion of the blood flow, are exposed to that inflammation constantly and continuously. Studies published in Kidney International have documented the relationship between chronic systemic inflammation and the progressive deterioration of kidney function. This is not speculation. It is a documented mechanism, and in people over 60, this effect is amplified because the functional renal reserve is already more limited. The damage does not hurt. It generates no immediate alarms. It only advances in silence until the blood tests begin to show what the body can no longer hide. And the oil coming next is the most concerning of all. Not because of what it is, but because of what it becomes when you use it the way almost everyone does. Reheated and reused vegetable oils. This is not a specific oil. It is a habit. A habit so normalized, so integrated into millions of kitchens that almost no one questions it. And that is exactly what makes it the most dangerous of the three. Think about what happens in a typical kitchen. The pan is heated, oil is added, eggs, chicken, vegetables are cooked. Afterwards, the pan is wiped with paper, and the remaining oil is used again for the next meal. Or the frying oil is stored in a container and reused for days. It is something learned from childhood. That seems reasonable because the oil still looks the same, and because no one has ever gotten immediately sick from it. But what happens inside that oil when it is heated over and over is a chemical transformation that no human sense detects in time. The first time a vegetable oil is heated, it already begins to oxidize. The body can handle that load with relative efficiency. The real problem begins with the second exposure to heat, and the third. Each cycle multiplies the concentration of free radicals and aldehydes in the oil. These substances do not disappear when the oil cools. They accumulate. They concentrate. And when that oil goes back into the pan, the process accelerates further. These compounds, once they enter the body, trigger an inflammatory response that affects the inner walls of the blood vessels. And when that damage occurs chronically in the vessels that supply the kidneys, the result is a progressive loss of filtering capacity. Imagine a high-precision water filter. At first, it works perfectly, but if every day a mixture with abrasive particles passes through it, the membrane deteriorates. The pores are altered, and over time the filter can no longer do its job. That is what cumulative oxidative damage does to the renal glomeruli. With age, functional renal mass decreases naturally. The kidneys of a 70-year-old have between 30 and 40% fewer functional nephrons than those of a 30-year-old. That means each remaining nephron has to work harder, and that the tolerance for additional damage is much lower. A young body can absorb that impact for a time. A body of 60 or 70 has far less margin. Ernest reheated the same oil 2 or 3 times a day. He had been doing it for years, and that, combined with an already refined base oil, created an oxidative load that his kidneys were absorbing until the blood tests could no longer ignore it. When I explained the mechanism to him, something changed in his expression, because understanding the why has a power that a simple warning does not. The real danger is not visible fat. It is invisible inflammation, the kind that builds silently, meal after meal, through oils that are heated again and again, and that aging kidneys can no longer handle the way they once did. If this content has been useful to you, I am asking you for 3 things right now. Like this video. Subscribe if you have not already. and leave me a comment telling me which oil you normally use in your kitchen. Your experience may help someone else going through the same thing. What comes next is the part I most want to share with you, because the real question is not only what to avoid, it is what you can put in its place. Now comes the part that actually matters most. Knowing what to avoid is only half of the equation. The other half is knowing what to put in its place. And that answer is simpler than you might expect. The first substitute is extra virgin olive oil, used cold or at low heat. Of all the oils available today, extra virgin olive oil has the most consistent body of research supporting its anti-inflammatory properties. It is rich in polyphenols that help protect the vascular walls, including those of the small vessels inside the kidneys. The key is to use it cold when possible, as a dressing, or at low to medium heat when cooking. High heat compromises its structure too, but used correctly it is one of the most protective choices available. The second substitute is avocado oil. It has a higher smoke point than olive oil, which makes it more stable at the cooking temperatures most people use daily. It is rich in oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat that makes olive oil valuable, and it generates significantly fewer oxidation products when heated compared to refined vegetable oils. If you need an oil for higher heat cooking, this is a far better option than canola or sunflower. The third option is small amounts of ghee, which is clarified butter. This might surprise you, but ghee is a saturated fat, and saturated fats are structurally more stable under heat than polyunsaturated fats. They do not oxidize as easily. Used in small quantities, ghee produces far fewer harmful oxidation compounds than refined vegetable oils heated repeatedly. And beyond the type of oil, there is something equally important. Never reheat the same oil twice. Use fresh oil each time you cook. Use less than you think you need. Keep temperatures moderate. These three habits alone can significantly reduce the oxidative load you are asking your kidneys to process every single day. Ernest made these changes gradually, over several months. He switched to extra virgin olive oil for dressings and low heat cooking. He stopped reheating used oil in the pan, and when we ran his next round of blood work 6 months later, his creatinine had stabilized. His filtration rate had not dropped further. His body had not reversed years of damage overnight. But the progression had slowed. The direction had changed. That is what I want you to take from this. Your kidneys do not fail suddenly. They deteriorate choice by choice, meal by meal, over years. But that also means protection happens the same way. Choice by choice. Meal by meal. Starting today, the damage that has already accumulated does not disappear. But the damage that has not happened yet can still be prevented. And after 60, that window of prevention matters more than at any other point in your life. If someone you care about is still cooking with refined vegetable oils every day, share this video with them. Not to alarm them, but because sometimes the most important information arrives too late, and you have the chance to change that for someone who matters to you. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. The next video continues from where we left off today. Your kidneys are working right now to keep you alive. Give them the conditions to keep doing it well.